Hey everyone, it's Always Improving here, and today I'm back with part 2 of making this BTS wallpaper for my desktop. It's a very long painting process. It took me over 24 hours. That's like time spent directly painting, so it was quite a long project. That's why I decided to split it up into 2 videos. If you didn't see the video last week, you should probably watch that one to see me get the base down for all of my characters. Where I left off, I had gotten the base down for all of the first 5 characters in a very basic, just the colors and kind of the shapes. Only that down for the last 2. But throughout this process, I'm of course going to be going back to the other characters and adding detail to them. As you can see here, I have done the pants on 2 of the other characters. The red pants with like their pajama pants were really, I was really nervous to kind of add that detail. It's kind of similar to the third character from the left. His pajamas, I didn't do those until the very end. I'm actually going to put the reference image up on the screen right now so you can see exactly what I'm going off of as I paint into this image. As I was saying, there are a couple of patterns in this image that I was just kind of worried about doing, but luckily I think those red pants turned out well first time. I did edit them a little bit throughout the process, but not very much. The next thing I did was go on to the second to last character. I was adding his facial features and also shading in his arms and his hands and his neck area, just trying to get a little more depth to the image and more detail. I went on and added shadows to his pants and to his shirt and just kind of finalized the basic image of that character. I added about the same level of detail to the last character and then moved on to his shoes, which were really fun. They're like Gucci shoes, and I wanted to make sure that it kind of looked like 3D and there were like words on them, so that was a really fun process for me to do and to try to create that little part of the image. After getting those last 2 characters to the level of detail that most of the other characters were at, I decided to add a little bit of the background before I moved back onto the characters. I didn't do much like texturing or details in the background. I just added a basic color and basic like lines, so I got kind of a room shape down, just so it felt more grounded and more concrete in the image. During this stage of the painting, I think the thing that took the most time to draw and to really get the details down was either the hands or the textures on their clothing, because like some of the characters have really detailed like patterns or like really, I don't know, like intricate or like random designs that I really didn't know how to like convey that they were that sort of shape and that sort of color without directly like doing every tiny little detail. I didn't want to do every tiny little detail, and I wanted to just convey that image, but it was still very difficult to do. So for things like the actual like lines, like on the last character shirt, I just did those directly. But for things like the second character, his pants, those were just like random colors. Even though his pants had like abstract art on them, I couldn't like copy the abstract art because it's abstract, you know? So those 2 things, the hands and the patterns on their clothing, were the 2 things that I think took up the most time for me while I was painting this painting. The character that I went back to first was the first character, actually. I think he needed the most work to kind of blend in with the others. This is because I did him first, and when I did him the first time, I didn't know exactly the stylistic approach I was going for, and he didn't have enough detail to really match with the rest of the image. but overall it wasn't too hard. I just needed to fix them up just a tad by adding textures and adding shadows to his clothing. I fixed up his shoes quite a bit, and I also went into his hair and added some variation, and then I made his eyes a little bit smaller to match a more realistic style. And here you can see I finally did actually make the kind of pattern on the third character from the left, his clothing. That was a challenge, but it turned out fine. I ended up just using a grid brush, and it did work. I did try to vary where the grids were based on the position of clothing. But I did think I needed to add some level of detail on top of that, so I went in and added some outlines over the grid, so it did look like there was still kind of some form to that clothing. I also decided to start adding detail to the other's clothing after that. I added the patterns on the second to last character's pants, and which this part took me a while actually. The third character from the right, I was trying to do his shirt, which is like, I think it's butterflies, but it almost looks like just random splotches of really light color and an almost like see-through grayish top. So I decided to just add like splatters of lighter color on top of like a grayer shirt, and I think it turned out okay. Let's see. Then I added some detailing to some shoes and added some more form, and just continued to pound out the details of this image. After working on hair for quite a while, I actually went and fixed up the hair of like almost, I think, 4 of the characters, which took a while. I wanted to make sure I emphasized the like highlight, because in the image a lot of them had like this really bright, like almost gray looking highlight, and I wanted to make sure that that kind of showed for all the different characters. So I did that, and just made sure that you could tell like and see how realistic the hair was, because I wanted that to really shine through. The final thing I did for this image was the background. I added details for the door, just some shadows and highlights, and then I went in for everything and added a bunch of texture to the walls because I felt like it was kind of plain, and I also added shadows onto the carpet under the last few people on the right, and that really wrapped up the image, and I thought that it looks like a finished product to me. So I signed the piece, and that was it. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and seeing the process behind a personal work of mine. This isn't for anyone but myself, really. I am going to use it as my desktop background, but I decided that it might make some interesting content, so I really do hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!